If you have an issue with a person that is having an episode, mentally ill, and needs some actual help because they are having a breakdown of some type, do not call the police. Do not call the police, because the police, for the most part, are not trained to handle people with mental issues. And they more than likely will harm or kill the person who has a mental health crisis. 50% of the people that police kill have been found to have some type of a mental issue. That's white, black, and in between. Here's a segment from the Roland Martin show that pretty much illustrates that, and how totally unprepared police are. There is no uniform use of force policies. It's just a damn shame. And then when cops are called on wrongdoing, rarely, I'm not going to say never, but rarely are they held accountable.
The police did it again, y'all. They shot another unarmed black person, as usual. And the lady is saying she called them for help not to kill her brother, and they shot her brother. Don't come for me. I ain't with it.
I'm just showing up.
And the ambulance is just now showing up. They was over there rubbing on him like that's supposed to bring him back to life. They've got over 20 cops out here, and the ambulance is...
That's the aftermath of the latest daily police shooting of an unarmed black man in the suburban San Diego. Now protests are growing, demanding investigators release more information and that someone be held accountable.
That was the Alfred Olango murder.
Tuesday, the sister of 30-year-old Alfred Olango called police for assistance when her mentally ill brother began acting strangely. Officers released this picture from the scene. The police chief says Olango ignored calls to remove his hands from his pockets and pulled out an object. One officer used a stun gun against him, while another fired his weapon because they felt threatened. No gun was ever found. Witnesses say they heard 5 shots fired, but officers are disputing that. Police do have cell phone video of the shooting, but have not released it. The chief is asking everyone to not rush to judgment.
I felt it's important, in light of some disinformation that was being put out by some of the folks that were out at the scene, that as far as we can tell, we're not witnesses to the actual event. And it's important that the facts come out right now.
There's a lot of hurt and a lot of, we just don't understand what's going on.
2 officers involved in the shooting have been placed on administrative leave. The death comes on the heels of officer-involved shootings in Charlotte and Tulsa. Joining me via Skype, Reverend Shane Harris, president of the National Action Network San Diego. Reverend Harris, this is what I still don't understand, because we saw this in Tulsa. One cop has a taser.
Right.
Another cop has a gun.
Right.
The guy fires, one cop fires the taser, which in most cases doesn't kill somebody. We have seen instances where folks have died due to tasers, but the gun can kill somebody.
Right.
I'm not understanding why, from a police procedure standpoint, why if you pull a gun thinking you might be threatened, you say, fire the taser, see if it takes them down. If they do have a weapon, I have the gun as a backup, but they fire at both at the same time makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I agree, Roland, and that's certainly what we're questioning. We are on a fact searching. We are fact searching, really focused on that. And what we know is that out of the 2 officers, one tased him. We don't know if he was on his way down, but we can only figure that if somebody's getting tased, that he was on his way down. And we do know that he was now holding an e-cigarette or a vape. And this is why around the country, this has got to be a big conversation when it comes to policing. We're not dealing with all of the cops. We're dealing with good cops and bad cops. And I'm not saying that one is good and bad in this situation. But what I am saying is that we do know that one tased and then one shot 5 times.
What is bothering me is, again, I think about Kojima Powell in St. Louis. He was killed a couple weeks after Mike Brown. I think about in Dallas, where a black mother called the cops because her mentally ill son was acting erratically. 2 cops show up on the scene. The guy's playing with a screwdriver, and he's literally playing with it. And then they tell him to put it down, but he's just enraptured by the screwdriver. And the mother's standing right there, and they end up killing him. That was a couple of years ago in Dallas. Clearly, there's a problem in America with police interacting with the mentally ill.
Yeah. And in Baltimore, Freddie Gray, we see the same thing. I think that what we're looking at, Roland, is a real question that needs to be posed to police departments and precincts around the country. How are we going to deal with the mentally ill in this country? And how does policing with the mentally ill look like? Yeah, we understand the racial disparities and some of the other issues, but how are we going to deal with the mentally ill? And that's got to be the real question here. What is the conduct for police when they're dealing with somebody who's mentally ill? Can somebody mentally ill follow any kind of protocol you're setting forth? And that's got to be the real conversation here and the questions that we have.
All right, Reverend, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Keep us abreast of what's happening there.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
We want to go to our panel real quick. I mean, again, part of this still goes to, we keep saying it, police practices. It goes to training. And I just don't understand how you're on the scene and one fires a taser, other fires a gun.
I'll tell you why. It's because there are not standardized use of force policies is one reason. And there's not accountability on the back end. Until we say that the presumption is that if you shoot someone and you didn't have a cause to do so, that you're going to go to jail and lose your job, and make that real on the use of force continuum, you're not going to have change. The second thing is implicit bias. These people, the woman in Tulsa, if you hear her voice, you can hear she's like quivering. I actually believe she feared Terrence Crutcher, even though she had no reason to. His hands were up. And it doesn't matter if your hands are up or if you're holding a vape or if you're sitting on the ground. When the guy got shot, when you're sitting on the ground, you can still get shot. And until we address and analyze police officers for their implicit bias, which they don't even know they have in some instances, and make that a part of the analysis of whether you're going to be on the street, you're going to see these same outcomes, because they look at black and brown people and they are threatened, even if it's irrational to be so.
There's one pretty universal standard in every state, and that is that you're not allowed to use deadly force unless you're in imminent danger.
No, unless you perceive that you're in imminent danger.
But it also has to be...
It's a subjective standard.
But,
yes.
But the subjective standard is also that it has to be based on what a reasonable person would do under the same or similar circumstances. I practiced law for 27 years. It doesn't have unlimited bounds.
Steve,
let me
Steve, the reality is, in America, it does. I mean, we've reached a point where in nearly every case, cop goes, hey, I fear for my life, and juries, DAs, grand juries, and the general public gives them so much leeway. It's, hey, no, you're absolutely right.
But
I agree and disagree to a point. I agree they give them leeway where there's not video, but where there's video, that speaks volumes. Like,
Steve, we covered a case in Delaware. Steve, we covered a case in Delaware where a brother was literally heads up, was going to his knees, and the officer literally kicked him in his head, knocked him unconscious. And when that went to trial, not guilty.
I mean, at this point, all the videos are doing really is putting us in trauma, because we have enough evidence at this point. A new study came out this morning that said 50% of the people who are killed by police are mentally ill. And at what point does this become almost a public health crisis, right? And the questions that we should be asking isn't just about the standards and practices, which we know at times are in place and can still, right, be mishandled, and where there's no accountability. And when do we start saying that we are going to balance out the funding of the police with mental health programs, with community centers, with places where people can go, instead of calling the police out of fear, right? I mean, I think that we have gotten to the point now, and I know, BYP 100 says this a lot, where we need to fund black futures versus spending all of our money on the police.
Well, I think we're at a point here, and I said this last week, we're having the same conversation week in, week out. We need some solutions to these issues. First, we do need to look at standards and practices. I think there needs to be an absolute national standard when it comes to use of force, and I think there needs to be stiff. I'm usually against mandatory minimums, but I think there needs to be a mandatory minimum test when you take a life without, justification. And secondly, you need to lose your policing license.
All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. We come back, we'll talk Flint water crisis. Yes, we still are focused on that. We'll tell you what's happening.
All right, so that's just another example of a person who should not have lost his life being killed by police, and in my opinion, unjustifiably.